Dice, yeah, ay, ay.
Good day and welcome. I am William, narrator for the FYI I Am Damaged podcast. Dr. Fred Moss has been a psychiatrist for more than 40 years, has seen over 30,000 patients, and now proud founder of Welcome to Humanity and the Undiagnosing movement. You'll hear us dig into undiagnosing, unmedicating and undoctrinating, the razor blade in the bandage problem with most psychiatric meds, and why real healing usually starts with one honest conversation, not a prescription. If you've ever wondered, what the hell is wrong with me, this episode might gently flip that question on its head. This is the FYI I Am Damaged podcast. Now, a word from our sponsor. Oscar wrote a wonderful children's book called Logan. The strong-minded little elephant, check it out.
Meet Logan, the strong-minded little elephant who learns that bravery isn't about being fearless. It's about believing in yourself even when you're scared. In this beautifully illustrated story, friends follow Logan through a colorful jungle as he learns to calm his worries, take deep breaths, and remind himself, I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. It's a story that helps kids, and maybe a few grown-ups too, find courage, mindfulness, and strength in their hearts. Logan, the strong-minded little elephant, by me, Oscar Luna. Available now at all major retailers and my publisher's bookstore, Milton and Hugo. Because it's up to every parent to show that their child deserves to know that strength starts from within.
Fred, you've worn a lot of titles: psychiatrist, healer, coach, expert witness, and now the undoctor. If you had to introduce yourself to someone, what do you actually say today?
Founder of Welcome to Humanity and the undoctor.
You've dropped out of college twice before landing a job at a state mental health facility for adolescent boys. What happened to make you think this is what I'm supposed to do with my life?
The whole time in my life, I've been very enchanted and very enthused and very inspired by communication as a course of healing. So ever since I was born, I've been very curious and interested in learning how to communicate. And I thought that was going to happen through school. Like, what else would they teach us in school? But it isn't what happened in school. In school, that my communication skills or open discourse were really just smothered. And so that isn't how things occurred. And what I really learned is I wanted more than anything else to learn how to communicate. And school was not the place. So by high school, I was skipping school really often. And by college, I eventually went to, I learned how to communicate pretty well, but I learned it away from school setting, out in the community, going past the boundaries, taking my bike past 8 Mile Road, or going into the next city, or going where I maybe was warned not to go, and learning how people lived everywhere. So that by the time I went to college, I went in an engineering school, not even knowing what an engineer was, because I just had good math scores and I wanted to go to Ann Arbor. Again, communication was not emphasized at Ann Arbor, and I dropped out. And I went all the way to Berkeley, California, figuring that I would figure out what my life was about. I took a bus all the way to Berkeley and from Detroit, and then had a great summer, but that was unsustainable as well. And I was called back to school by my family, my 2 older brothers and my parents, who told me that there was this industry out there that was just growing that I might be good at. And that was called computers. You may have heard of it. There was a computer at the University of Michigan. And sure enough, I decided to go back in and try that one more time, back to Detroit, back to Ann Arbor, back to trying it one more time. And of course, there was a 2-acre facility called the Computer, and batch jobs and punch cards and Fortran and COBOL. I was like, nah, that's not it either. So I dropped out a second time. Like, I'm never going back to school again. Because this is just stupid. And my mom got me an application. She was like, you got to get a job somewhere. So she got me an application for 2 different jobs. One was at the unemployment office, Michigan Unemployment, and the other one was at this state mental health facility for adolescent boys. Second one was starting earlier than the first one. That's the only reason I took it. Well, there was one other reason. There was this 3-week orientation in the mental hospital. And so I would be paid full time for 40 hours, 3 straight weeks. I was like, wow, that's way more money than I've seen in a while. And so I'm going to only work 3 weeks. I'm not coming back on that 4th week, first day to go up to the floors because that isn't really what I want to do. So I was pretty sure I was going to quit in 3 weeks. And eventually on that end of the 3rd week, my friend Paul, who later became a very good friend of mine, convinced me to go up to the floors with him and learn what the job was really about. I was totally terrified. And I went up to be with these 17-year-olds. I was only 21, 22 at the time. And there I was, and I learned that, wow, this is a place where I can communicate, where I can actually be with other people. And that through that communication, do what I know communication does, which is cause healing for not only them, but for me as well in the process. So I now was being paid to, frankly, to be a communicator. And it was like, wow, I found something here. And the whole time, though, I was like agreeable to do it for another 3 weeks, like I can just do this for 3 weeks, and let's get it another 3 weeks. And then I'll get the paycheck, another 3 paychecks, and I'll apply that to the Volkswagen that I'm going to buy. And then I'll drive around the country and figure out what my life was about. So 3 weeks, kept on going in 3 weeks, kept on going in 3 weeks. And then it was like another 3 weeks. And frankly, to tell you the truth, Oscar, to this very day, I'm going to quit in 3 weeks.
Was
40?
Is it in those first 3 weeks? What was it? The stories? Was it the individuals? Was all of that impacting you? Just keep drawing you back, and I guess learning the framework on how to. I don't know if you were managing them, helping them, or just what were you doing with them? I guess to heal them. And I don't know what a psychiatrist does. So
yeah, no, I certainly wasn't being a psychiatrist. That's for sure. I was being a mental health child care worker, and it wasn't the first 3 weeks. It was the second 3 weeks that I began to see actual clients, and all I had to do was be myself and just look across the room and see another human that doesn't, just like you. I mean, just like anyone, see another human who's likely having all sorts of trials and tribulations and obstacles and hurdles and challenges to get through in order to be alive, not pretend that I have something that I'm giving them or, not a doctor-patient power gradient, not that at all. In fact, I really hated the thing that I liked about that job was counterbalanced by what I hated about that job. As it turned out, I hated psychiatry. I truly hated the way psychiatry was going and the direction it was headed. So I went in, after a couple of years of this, I realized that I didn't want to keep doing this my whole life, being a child care worker. So I went back to school to complete my degree so that I could become a psychiatrist and maybe be a hero, like somehow bring communication back to a field that was already headed in a direction of being restraining and constraining, medicating people physically and medicating and restraining people chemically and also physically restraining people, and not allowing them to grow and flourish with who they are. So I was hoping to go into psychiatry and use what I knew was right to actually move people forward. And that's what got me, that's what the incentive was, to go back and finish school that 3rd time I went through. And not only finish school, of course, apply to medical school, get accepted in medical school, finish residency, finish my fellowship. So it was really, frankly, 13 more years.
Now, with what you described as what you hated about what you were doing,
not what I was doing. I didn't hate what I was doing.
Okay.
I hated psychiatry. I hated the future of
correct.
psychiatry.
Yes. So what you were experiencing psychiatry at that point in time, was that something that, was it that, or, because I know you said in interviews around 2006, there was a turning point. Was that the turning point with the standard model?
No. I already knew when I came out of medical school that I was misaligned, and that I would be spending the next several years following rules, but not necessarily encouraged to do what I know is right. That is a massive misalignment. You can't really get wealthy doing a job that you hate. So along the lines, what I was doing was, kind of running behind trees and like fitting in communication where I could and letting people know that I didn't really agree with what it was that I was being asked to do. A lot of duplicity, a lot of crashing up in conflict. And so in 2006, what ended up happening, even though I had now gone 15 years as a psychiatrist doing what I just described, like dancing around and knowing in my heart of hearts that I was not aligned with the way that I was pursuing helping people, that I was telling people that this is going to help them, and kind of knowing in my soul that it probably was not going to help them. That's not aligned with being a good doctor. That's not a Hippocratic oath. So when we stepped forward in 2006, I finally got so tired of it that I decided I can no longer do this with a straight face. So I began to take a bunch of my people. I had a couple thousand people in a very large practice who were my clients, my patients. And I took a big chunk of them off of their medicines and off of their diagnoses. And, that was an amazing experience because almost every single one of them got better, reliably better, profoundly better, often losing the original diagnosis they thought they had, and walking away with a new sense of peace and freedom that wasn't going to happen in a natural way. Like no doctor is going to stop medicines typically, and these people were finally given the freedom of their life. So this is where the breakthrough happened in that area, where it was on the ground breakthrough from a powerful position of being a doctor for thousands of people, and really beginning to see that taking them off medicine is probably the much bigger favor than giving them a diagnosis and starting them on that. Not probably, 100% bigger of a favor than giving them some reason to believe there's something wrong with them and give them some medicines that's going to create something wrong with them.
Yeah, that was one thing I was worried about with beginning my therapy journey. It's okay. Not knowing what's behind, whether it's psychologists or a therapist or whatever, the ones that you speak to, or the other ones that just medicate you. And I was just, that was a concern for me because it's like, that's not something that I want to, there's a stigma around that. And it's like, I didn't want to be in that sort of, I don't know. It's just, it just felt wrong to me just to medicate someone because they're going through life challenges and other things. But I mean, to each their own. I'm not there with them every day to see what they're going through or their chemistry or whatever. So it's, yeah, good.
Yeah, it's actually worse than that. If it was really just a Band-Aid or it worked, I would be aligned with it. It'd be fine. It doesn't work.
No.
It actually makes things worse.
I have some things on that, but that's just like personal view. But you said you wanted to undiagnose, undoctrinate, and usher people out of the psychiatric industry complex. For someone who's never heard those words before, what does that look like for a real patient?
Yeah, for a real patient, I mean, the only reason to go to a doctor is you're pretty sure there's something wrong with you. And as it turns out, as a psychiatrist, I think it's the only subspecialty that if I tell somebody I think they're okay, they get pissed. There's no other area in medicine. If an oncologist tells you you're okay, you're like, good. If your ophthalmologist tells you you're okay, you're like, good. If your, cardiologist tells you you're okay, you're good. If a psychiatrist tells you you're okay, he's a quack. He totally doesn't get it. People don't want to hear a psychiatrist tell you that you're okay. People come to a psychiatrist already knowing in their heart or in their brain or in their history that there's something wrong with them. They only want to be told what's wrong with them. They don't want to be told that nothing is wrong with them. So in undiagnosing, when I really got to look after 2006, like it's not medicine's fault. Medicine isn't even a thing. Medicine is like a tool. It's not, how can it be a hammer's fault that a nail went into the wall? Not exactly. So it's not medicine's fault. It's not the industry fault. It's not the industry. It's not doctors' fault. It's not insurance companies' fault. It's not anyone's actual fault. These things are just in place. I tried to call Big Pharma the other day. I couldn't find a phone number because there's nobody there. There's no such thing as Big Pharma. That's what we call it, Big Pharma, as if it's a thing, but it isn't a thing. It's just like a machine.
Yeah, we love labels.
Yeah. And so, when you really, really look at it, I began to see that where is the entry point to make a difference in this world when I see over and over again, medicines are actually making people worse, even when people think that they're better. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, I see that. It's not like an opinion. It's thousands of patients in. I've seen over 30,000 patients as a doctor. Most my friends or colleagues or other patients don't know of 30,000 people for sure. But there's people who have come to me and spilled their guts on my lap, hoping to get some kind of help. And medicines and diagnoses are not help. Neither of them are very helpful. Even though they give us an idea of what might be wrong with us or why we're acting a certain way, it's not very helpful. It's very crystallizing and allows us to think that there's something afflicted about us, that we're affected, we're defective, we're missing something, we're deficient in some way. And what I began to see is that the only way to affect this cycle of people going into a system thinking they're going to get something better for themselves and only having that thing make them worse without them even noticing it, the only way to really address that is to start from the beginning and get that the average person needs to realize that there's likely nothing wrong with them at all. You know, we don't blame a log for burning in a fire. We are living in a fire right now, and it is very difficult. There are massive challenges to being a human right now. Everyone knows that. Just be kind to ourselves. Like, if you're feeling confused, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling afraid, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling depressed, welcome to humanity. That's what we're talking about. This is the human experience. There may, in fact, be nothing wrong with you at all. And if there's nothing wrong with you, that's the way to stay out of the system. Because when do you go to a doctor? The only way you go to a doctor is when you think there's something wrong with you. So by addressing that, by getting undiagnosed, then you can get unmedicated because there's no reason to take medication if there's nothing wrong with you. The only reason to take medicine is so we can make ourselves right. You know, that's the only reason you take medicine in the first place. So undiagnosing, unmedicating, and in that process, undoctrinating, which is a word that I made up, that is moving you out of the medical industrial complex if you're thinking about coming in, or possibly even more heroically, moving you out of the psychiatric industrial complex, even if you're already in. That's a little bit more difficult because you have to buy a whole new program if you're going to be the client. You have to realize that even this whole time that you've been pretty sure there's something wrong with you, maybe there wasn't. That does take a certain kind of soul to realize because they've been living day after day after day after day after day after day thinking that there's something wrong with them. How do I know that? Because they take their medicine every morning and they make sure never to miss a dose, and they show up at the pharmacy every month and they make sure the doctor has enough refills, and they're very sure that there's something wrong with them. Unringing that bell is pretty challenging.
And there isn't a case where you think, and it's just taking all perspectives, and with some people who may genuinely need medication, how do you reconcile your skepticism with the reality that for certain individual chemistry might matter?
I don't believe that it does. In fact, I believe it does matter after you start taking medicine, because the medicine creates a chemical imbalance, and that needs to be maintained. So once you have a chemical imbalance that the medicines have caused, you didn't have it before you got there, but you have it as soon as you start talking about, you know, it's not chemical. There's no proof at all. There's no studies that have ever been done that show eloquently that any chemical imbalance causes psychiatric illness. Never been done. You can't find one because there isn't one. So we just have bought that we have bought that rhetoric as being a truth. Chemical imbalance and biological psychiatry got its birth while I was in medical school. In 1987, there was a drug introduced that changed the whole paradigm of psychiatry. In 1986, we didn't think like this. In 1987, everything shifted. You know that drug. Maybe you don't know which one I'm going to name right now, but that drug shifted all of psychiatry into the belief that biological psychiatry and chemical imbalance was the cause of discomfort. See, it's not your fault that you're feeling depressed or afraid or anxious. By the way, the name of that drug is Prozac, and Prozac totally altered the entire framework for what it means to be a psychiatric patient. Prior to that, I would be able to go into a room and ask a group of people if they know anybody who has a mental illness, who has ever been diagnosed with mental illness, and essentially nobody would raise their hand, a couple people here and there. Now, if I go into a room and ask people if they know of anybody who's got a psychiatric problem, 100% of rooms, 100% of people think that there's people with psychiatric, because they're sad or because they're anxious or because they're scared or because they're distracted or because they're awkward. They feel there's something wrong with them, that they don't have a capacity to alter that. The truth is you do have the capacity to be an entirely different person than who you've been up until now on any given second of life. You can start saying, doing, or being someone different than you are starting right now. There is nothing truly that interferes with that. So you don't want to get up out of bed. That doesn't mean the same thing as not being able to get up out of bed. So if you don't want to be in a crowd, that's not the same thing as not being able to be in a crowd. But we equate those things that we don't want to. We feel lazy, or we feel scared, or we feel sad, or we feel concerned, or we feel worried. And so we don't do these things, and we pretend, I say pretend, that we can't, that we are somehow blocked by our condition. I don't have it that way at all. I've seen way too many people actually heal entirely from what they thought was a permanent psychiatric illness to think that it can't happen.
I hear you on that, because through my journey, and it's only because of what I experienced, I don't like talking about something I theorize or anything like that, because I've gone through a lot. I'm going through a lot right now, to the point where it's like, but I know that this is something that I love. I love my podcast. I love talking to different people and different perspectives. But I could tell you now, if you knew what I was going through, it's just like, damn, it's like, why are you even here? You know, a lot of people would have been just crawled under the sheets and didn't want to get out and just revel in whatever stress that they're dealing with. And I'll say about a year or two, maybe 3 back, is when I started dealing with, okay, this is what I've been through. Like, I've been through my own traumas, and I let that affect me for decades, to the point where I didn't know who I was. But then when I started getting curious, and this is what I like to like introduce people to, it's like, get curious about healing yourself, in a sense of dealing with your traumas, facing what you're going through, and who knows where it may lead you. And luckily for me, I was able to do that. And it's a journey. It's a journey to say, you know, to think of yourself as hurt, as a victim, as traumatized, and always wondering, will I get better? How will I get better? And I tell people, you have to face it. You have to understand where your journey is going to take you, and not shy away from just the hard fact of healing may never stop, but you have to start that journey and not wallow in the pain of what you faced, and just you're dealing with just the trauma of it. And it's been interesting, because there's been a lot of times where I've been like that, didn't want to get out of bed, very stressed, have to go to work, and never labeled myself something. I never labeled myself whatever labels that may be out there, where someone who has been through traumas and who has been affected.
PTSD is the most famous.
Exactly. Yes, that as well. So, and for myself, for my wife, for my kids, and just what I'm doing in life, I said, look, you just got to face it, understand it, talk to yourself, in the sense of that. If the main trauma for me happened when I was a child, I talked to my child within me, and have an understanding of that. Yes, it's not your fault, what you've been through. You need to learn how. That's the main thing, is I never learned until recently. Like, I needed to forgive myself. I never need to forgive who wronged me. I need to forgive myself, and it helps me control my emotions and not think that other people are making me feel like this in whatever situation that may be. And it's been rough, because there have been times where I want to give it all up, and not in a suicidal sense, but just like walk away and get a shitty job and just live until I'm not, you know. So, but no, it's facing that. It shows you the fight you can have for yourself. And when you start fighting for yourself, and now that I have kids, it's a whole different ballgame. And I don't know if you've experienced individuals going through something like that. Yeah, I'm sure you've probably seen so many people in every different stages from beginning to end about their healing journey.
Yeah, again, we're all wounded. We're all wounded gravely, from past lives, from early life, from recent, whatever. We're all wounded massively. Again, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the way that we're thinking. It doesn't mean that. It just doesn't mean that. Even wanting to give up doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Even not wanting to do that which you need to do doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. Even being totally terrified or reminded of past hurts doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. All of those things are completely contained in something called the human condition. There has never been a time where people weren't that way. And there's no person who isn't that way. So it can't be that it's abnormal. We see in psychiatry, we don't even have an understanding of what normal is. There's no definition of normal, yet we have the audacity to declare things as being abnormal, as if it has to be compared to something, but we don't even know what normal looks like. We just think that when we feel well, we're normal. And when we feel pain, we're abnormal. But that is a programming that has taken place for us, rather than realizing that pain and suffering and misery are just as much part of life as feeling comfort and feeling ecstasy and feeling, like or anticipation. All of those things are all part of this human experience. It is only when we become sure that that must mean there's something wrong with us that we go to a doctor, and then we get a alphabet soup diagnosis of some sort, get a treatment plan, and then get a diagnosis, and then start some medicine, which, by the way, is, in my world anyway, often designed to induce, increase, perpetuate, and sometimes actually cause the symptoms that it's marketed to treat. These medicines cause the symptoms they're marketed to treat. And it's a good business model. It's a good business model, by the way.
It is. It's the self-fulfilling model,
For sure. It's fantastic. Like, there's no upper end.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why, like, having those deep discussions with my wife and being vulnerable, she would be like, do you got to get on something? I'm like, something in me told me no. Like, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. I've seen people on it. Whether they're true to fact of, TV shows on how they portray people on medications, I'm like, I don't want to be like that. I don't. Whether it's true or not, regardless, I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm not going to be who I am. I got to deal with what I've been through and what I'm going through. And, it was a tough choice. And, almost felt like going cold turkey without going cold turkey, because it's like, there was a point in time I didn't know what to do. Having to deal with the mood swings of, anger, hurt, despair, trying to find the good portions of life and thinking that the good is always few and far between, and having that sort of outlook that could have been negative. And it was something to process.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I do know. That's called normal humanity, by the way.
Yeah. And understanding that and going through my emotions and finally doing something to face what I've been going through, because, everything was on the line. It was almost ready. I was almost ready to be done, with marriage and, not being there for my kids 24/7. And it was a journey, and realizing that, I said, no, I got to do something. I got to make this turnaround. It was either fall off the cliff or just back up and be like, okay, I got to find another route.
Well, here's the thing. As hurt as you've been, and as wounded as you are, and as injured as you were, I'm going to actually push back on the name of this podcast, Dare I. It's a lot of, that's some ballsy things to do with a podcaster with this name, and suggest out loud to your fans, to your listeners, and to me and you, that you are not damaged.
Oh, no, I'm actually healing. I got a few dents on me. Definitely have a few dents.
Even that is not damage. You're allowed to have dents. In fact, you've never met a human who didn't.
See that, and I love when people do that, because within my perspective, it's about putting a mirror in front of somebody's face who hasn't started their healing journey. I've had people say plenty of times, I had it even told to me from individuals that I know who encountered my podcast, to get offended and say, I'm not damaged. Nobody said you were. But that's yourself looking at it that way. So there's something there. So why not get curious about what is there? And if you need to heal, start your healing process.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things, like even the children's book I came out with, it has focuses on I am statements, positive I am statements, and other people tend to go to the negative I am statements. Even in my job where I work, help desk, and people call in, for IT, they're like, I'm really bad with computers. Oh, I did something stupid today. Like, no, you didn't. You didn't do anything wrong. Things just happen. And you don't need to refer to yourself that way.
Exactly.
Let's start this off on a positive note.
Yeah.
And you see the shift,
Exactly.
And it's not somebody who's like popping something to kind of level themselves out. It's like, no, change your mind shift, because I've gone through my journey enough and where I'm at now to have that sort of mind shift. When they start doing it, they say, you're right. It's a computer. Shit happens. What am I going to do? It doesn't reflect your intelligence. It doesn't reflect anything else. I said, you're a busy person. You got so much stuff on your hands. So what if you got to restart your computer because it's not connected to the internet? And then you see that change. And so when I do my thing, people get interested. It's like, I want to see what that's all about. Like, right. Okay. Where are you at in your journey? What are you doing? Are you even curious about healing, or you just want to tell people this is what I've been through? So that's, thank you for doing that, because I don't get enough chance to explain that to people, to say, they just think like, oh, you think everybody's messed up. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I want them, especially men, I want them not to be so self-deprecating and just say, because I was that person. I had a fight with my wife one day. And my mother was with us, and she asked me something. I said, and this was when I was really bad. I said, well, I'm just a fuck up. I'm stupid. And, I'm never going to do anything right. And I said that around the people I love. And I'm thinking of myself this way. So that was one of the moments I reflect back on and say, damn, how many people are doing that to themselves? How many men are doing that to themselves, thinking they don't have anybody fighting for them, advocating for them, doing for them the simplest check-ins or anything that would lead them to think, you know what, I am going through some crappy stuff at the moment, but that doesn't define me. And that's what I'm hoping somebody gets from these type of interviews, to say, you know what, all right, I may not be damaged, but I need a little work.
Yeah, exactly.
How do I do that?
Yeah, and the best place to do that is in connection. It's with other people. It's like communicating and resonating at a high frequency with another human being, harmonically being connected. And when that happens, that's when healing takes place. And it's a healing that far exceeds anything that psychiatry has to offer. There's certainly no medicines that cause that. There's certainly no diagnoses that cause that. There's certainly no treatment plans that actually cause that, except for the rare case in which you feel like your clinician, the person you have hired, is actually connected with you. Then when that happens, you get the surge or a little bit of the taste of what happens when someone really heals, which is you share your experience with another human who actually gets that you're going through that. And when that happens, an explosion, a profound explosion of healing takes place in that very second, without the need for copay, without the need for a doctor's visit, without the need for a pharmacy, without the need for medication, without the need for, for authorization, without the need for any of that. You have an opportunity to heal when you share your story with another person, and then they get it. And that's what we're really advocating here. I'm not diminishing the pain that it really has to be in life, but I will say a couple things. You were talking about popping pills for just a comfort. If all pills did was provide temporary comfort, I would be down with them. I'm good. I would be happy. That would be great. I would sell them. It's all fine. But they don't. It's like a Band-Aid, but with a razor blade embedded in it. So when you think about that, if you don't know there's a razor blade in your Band-Aid and you put it on a cut, it'll work for a short period. For a short period of time, you'll stop bleeding. But because there's a razor blade in the Band-Aid, you'll start bleeding soon over the edges of the Band-Aid. You'll start oozing blood out of the sides of the Band-Aid. Us doctors, we've only been trained to do 3 things in that situation. Number 1, add. Number 2, increase. Number 3, change. So we either add another Band-Aid where the oozing is taking place, or we increase the size of the Band-Aid so that now it covers a wider range, or we change the kind of Band-Aid and give you a different kind of Band-Aid that has a razor blade in it. It isn't like the doctors think there's a razor blade in there, by the way. I'm not calling doctors evil. Some of my best friends literally are doctors, and we've been trained to believe what we've been trained. And we went into the field with the hope of healing people. So we still have that. We've just been taught that this does that. We fall for the same noise as our patients. But the truth is that is not what these medicines do. These medicines nefariously and quietly often cause or increase or perpetuate or induce the symptoms they're marketed to treat. That's number 1. So I really want to make that very clear. And, you know, the other space is that it's really important to get that there's nothing wrong with you when you think there's something wrong with you either. That's also part of the human experience.
So if somebody were to say to you, feeling what they're feeling, what they've been through, traumas either to the mind, to the body, or a mixture of everything, and they say, okay, so what the hell is wrong? If nothing's wrong with me, so then what the hell is going on with me?
You need to be heard. You need to be connected with. You need to realize that this is part of the human experience. You need to realize that you're not a fuck up. You need to realize that we don't blame a log for burning in a fire. It doesn't make the log wrong for burning in a fire. There's a freaking fire out here, bro. There's a fire going on. The fact that you're burning in this fire doesn't make you wrong. The fact that you haven't pulled it together and decided how to stay like a solid log doesn't make you wrong. It is very, very deeply challenging to be a human in the present day. Super deeply challenging. It is okay to be bumbling, stumbling, and tumbling into being a human and still having massive discomfort. It can be very, very, very uncomfortable being a human. That still doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Yes, there's something there. It's called discomfort. I totally get that, and I relate to that, and I underline it. I don't mean to diminish that at all. It isn't like, dude, get over it. That's not it at all. Just realize that this level of massive discomfort does not in any way suggest that there's something wrong with you.
That's where, and off of that point, that's where, as a father, I pulled back with my kids. I was very stern. I was very calling out their mistakes and everything. And then once I started on my journey, I looked back and I handle them with kind hands, kind words, always say, hey, look, always show them the difference between, look, what you did wasn't right, to the point of like, look, you're learning, okay, you're doing something, you drop something here, it's dirt. Okay, it can be cleaned, but you have to make sure you make the effort to clean it. And all sorts of things where another parent, or what I've done before, was just calling out mistakes and making them feel
wrong.
They're wrong, not enough, and all that. A lot of things like that's a big one from all my interviews. There's a lot of men out there who don't feel like they're enough, and that is rooted in the parents and how they were brought up, and they drag that into the next generation and ingrain that within their kids. And so I'm taking a different, and I noticed it even to the point where, and I have to be a little bit better with it. Like I told my kids, I said, you know what? You guys love it. I want to learn how to play Pokemon, the card game. I got a just turned 15-year-old, soon to be 13-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And the two oldest, they do it. And I'm like, you know what? And then you see the change and the shift. And then from seeing that experience and then knowing how I was before and how I am now, and then I see another parent and I see how, he is with his kids, and I'm like I don't even know if I should say anything, but I'm like, I see how, and I recognized it. I said, damn, I used to be like that. And I said, that might not turn out well. And mind you, the mother is in the mental health field. And I'm like, damn, this shit should be called out, because treating a kid like that in a sense of being a stern father figure, I'm like, that shit doesn't work. It didn't work with me. I'm backtracking. I'm doing my best to re-heal with my boys and with, the inner child of myself. And I'm like, so I don't know. It's like, it's one of those deals where you see something going on and like, it's their life. He's on his journey. Should I say something? And, I mean, that's something that I don't know how to approach. If you see that, well, what would be your
Again, I
suggestion?
think you're doing something very human here about testing whether or not you can make a positive difference by saying a certain thing to a certain person who you feel like is going down a trap that is going to lead them to a worsened life. So, when looking at my second book, which was called Find Your True Voice, I help people come in touch with what's already here at your core center. What is it that you're really about? And how do we do that? We have learned how to pretend to be someone that we're not in order to protect the person that we are. So we oftentimes don't say things when we know we could or should, or we do say things when we don't even agree with what we're saying. Do you get how absurd that is? We are actually now saying things that even we don't agree with. Like, it's just crazy, man. And in order so that we can stay on the team, so that we won't get hurt, so that we won't be diminished or disregarded or thrown off the island in any way. So we're willing to lie, even if we know we're lying. We're willing to say things that are misaligned with what we know is right. So, in your question about what to say or not to say to someone, you have to really follow the boundaries. Like, maybe that person doesn't want to hear from you, in which case you probably shouldn't say anything, because if you tell that person they're messing up or that they're hurt their kid or that there's a better way and they're not ready to hear it, they're likely not to, the whole point of saying it would only be so that they get it. There's no reason to say it just to get it off your chest. The only reason to say it would be on the small chance that they would be able to hear you and then perhaps improve their life or look at things a little bit differently. So we have to make that kind of distinction as well to decide. Now, as a doctor, when someone comes in, or as a coach, or as a teacher, as a facilitator, as a speaker, those things that I all do, when someone comes in and asks me something like that, that's different, because they're actually coming in supposedly looking for my opinion, except if I tell them they're okay. When I tell people that they're okay, they do flinch. They're like, because they can go just right next door and they'll find a doctor who agrees that they're not okay. It's no problem finding a doctor who agrees that you're not okay. No, that's no problem. The problem is coming to grips with the possibility that even inside of your pain, inside of your suffering, inside of your confusion, inside of your helplessness or hopelessness, inside of your aimlessness, it's okay. That's all part of the human experience and the human condition. And when we can get there, we start from a new place together. We start as two humans trying to figure out how to pull this thing off, how to be useful today, how to be a contributor right this very minute, how to make a difference in other people's lives, our family, our friends, our community. We decide that. And if we can do that, that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to connect with other folks and make a difference. When we can do that, then all the pain and all the suffering and all the misery and all the injuries and all the trauma and all the damage that we think we have tends to float away. And we start realizing, you know what? I'm exactly where I should be. I've done everything. I've had every single experience I've had in life, and it has not worsened me at all. All I really am is a human going through life through lots of experiences. And that there's some very empowering qualities to taking that on, much like you do with your IT customers.
Well said. Now, in your travels, you studied how other cultures handle emotional distress. What did you learn outside of the US that most American clinicians would find surprising?
I think the thing I learned is that people in other countries are so much like us, it doesn't really matter where you are. There's a universality that people really just want to connect. More than anything else, people are really wanting to connect with other people. Even monks who go into caves, the reason they go into caves typically is because they've tried to connect and it hasn't worked out, and then they had some pain, and then they don't want to revisit that pain, and they think it's coming anyway, so they think that it's best to just go hide away and not be with other humans. But the truth is, the average human is deeply interested in connecting. And sometimes that's with words, sometimes it's with art, sometimes it's with hugs, sometimes it's with a smile, sometimes it's with a handshake, sometimes it's with a deal. But most every human is deeply interested in connecting, whether they're from Zimbabwe or Singapore or Reykjavik or Auckland or St. Louis, they all just want to connect. That's one thing. And in many countries, a psychiatric diagnosis does not transfer very well. So if you got a diagnosis in Sacramento and you took that to Reykjavik, you probably wouldn't even have that diagnosis anymore. It's culturally specific. These diagnoses, like that's not true with a broken arm. If you have a broken arm in Sacramento and you go to Reykjavik, dude, you still got a broken arm, promise.
Yeah.
You got a broken arm in Reykjavik and you go to Singapore?
Still broken.
Still broken. That is not true in psychiatry. Psychiatry, it's an influence of the diagnoser who says that you're weirder than the general people in this area. First of all, they say that without knowing what the hell they're talking about, because they don't even know what normal is. We've already decided that. And then you take that to Singapore, they might think that you're not only normal, but you're gifted. They might want to give you a government job. They might want to give you a doctor job. They might give you a shaman job, whatever they want to give you, but they don't think that you're damaged goods. They don't think that you have a psychiatric diagnosis. They think some other way. So psychiatric diagnoses are not universal, number one. And number two, every human on the planet is deeply interested in the human connection.
Absolutely. I really love that. And with me branching out with other users, with other individuals who want to be interviewed, and it's the connection with most of the people who I talk to, it's been amazing. And, I always say, like, you know what? I gotten to the point where doing this has been coming off more for me than it has been for anyone else. And that's the one thing I love. It's all the different perspective, all the different views. It's been amazing for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Now your creative 8 method lists art, music, dancing, singing, drama, cooking, writing, and gardening as healing practices. You said when people are creating, their dis-ease disappears, even if only for 3 minutes. Why does making something make us talk about problems we often can't?
Well, it's just other forms of self-expression. And we start realizing that when we're creating, our sense of self-despair goes away when we become like our creator, when we start creating. And then we start self-expressing through those techniques as well, especially art, music, and dancing. And in that self-expression, we open up the possibility of connecting to other people. So we actually get relieved rather than looking at our depression and our anxiety as if it's a fixed way of being. We start seeing that these are transitional experiences that are part of humanity. And when we create, we decrease their tendency to believe that there's something wrong with us. And then when we're done creating, done with the creative act, even 3 minutes later, we have a choice. Do we need to go back to the self-despair that we had before we started creating? Or can we keep going from here and actually leave it behind us?
Now, you've spoken about AI and mental health as a coming paradigm shift. Where do you see technology helping, and where does it risk deepening our disconnection from each other?
Well, it does both things for sure. So the way I think it helps is by realizing that they are machines, that all the AI is machines, even if they start looking, acting, and really performing like human. But they are magical. They have a tremendous amount of knowledge and an incredible amount of capacity to cause differences in other people and to create conversations that people have never had, and having them feel like they're connected, even if it is with a machine. So the problem is if we stay connecting with machines, if we stay connected with ChatGPT and then we start forgetting about the people in our life, and actually just stay on the computer having our nice conversations with robots and bots, then it really actually can interfere with who we are for the other real people in our life. So that's one thing. On the other thing, On the other hand, the future of AI and what it has to offer by utilizing the information that it has been given over the years and who it has now become, if we can learn how to prompt AI effectively, if I can teach people how to prompt AI so that we get the results about what they're looking for and in their deep interest in feeling heard and feeling connected, then I think there's some deep positive value available inside of AI moving forward.
Now, from your own journey, what's one non-negotiable practice that keeps you grounded after 4 decades in this work?
I think meditation is really important. I think sitting still and sitting silent and allowing yourself to experience all of life and then keep coming back to center to realize these are experiences and do not define who you are. I think that's probably the most effective. And I'd say the next thing I have a whole list of 20 things called the Moss Method. Gratitude and meditation and eating great food and drinking, clean water, lots of clean water, keeping the flow going, nature and pets and pampering, spirituality and service. All of these things are, there's a whole list of 20. Each one of them really moves us forward. So I think watching what we put in our mouth is also really important. High level nutrition, organic primarily, with really clean water and herbal teas tend to go a long ways. And that's something that nearly everyone can take some part in.
Now, for someone who's tired, over-medicated, and skeptical that anything will help, what is the smallest first step you'd invite them to take towards reclaiming their own humanity?
Reach out to someone you know is probably the smallest first step. Someone who can hear you, someone who won't judge you, someone who won't call you wrong, someone who won't direct you, someone who won't instruct you, someone who can just hear your pain. You may find that there's a friend or a family member who would like nothing more than to listen to you, care for you, and hug you. Now, you also may find there's no one in my world or anything like that. In that case, what I would start with doing is, this idea of gratitude in the morning, like actually becoming grateful for something. It's open up the morning with 10 things that you're grateful for in this world. For me, my wife, my cats, the sun, the moon, the cars, my refrigerator, the food in my refrigerator, my coaches, my friends, my job, the fact that there's running water, all of those things are easy for me to be grateful for. And you should be able to come up with 10 things. When you start the day, launch from there instead of, oh my God, WTF, another day, same day, different crap, etc. That's a really strong way to open up our life and can create a new sense of being. The final thing I want to say is you get to start your life right now. You really do. Everything that has led up until now is what has led up until now. As of this moment, you are free to be, do, and say whatever you want. And there is nothing from your past that prevents you. Now, some things have different consequences. I'm not saying, go murder your neighbor, because you can do that, but there'll be consequences. You can do whatever you need to do, whatever you want to do from this moment forward. You are not stuck to the history and the habits that brought you to now.
Finally, where can people go if they want to explore Welcome to Humanity, grab the Creative 8 book, or simply continue the conversation you started here today?
So I think the best place to go is at drfred360.com, drfred360.com. And you can see icons there. It'll direct you to everywhere, including the contact button. If you hit that contact button, you can we can set up a conversation. If you just leave your email, your best email, and your full name, and then we'll set up a conversation. Another place to go is to Undoctor Reset. Undoctorreset.com is this whole thing of what we're doing here, walking people off the ledge so that they don't believe there's anything wrong with them anymore. It's an 8-week course that I'm delivering right now. And it's the idea is it's really helps people move the things out of the way that are in the way of them knowing themselves to be a powerful, godlike human being.
Dr. Moss, thank you for your time. Thank you for everything that you're doing for everyone that crosses your path in their journey. And thank you for all the things that even I have to reflect on. And I really appreciate it. And lastly, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Ask great questions. I appreciate you pushing as hard as you did. Thanks for the great conversation.
Thank you, Oscar. That was an insightful episode. We heard a psychiatrist say out loud that massive discomfort and feeling like a screw-up are not proof that you're defective. They're part of the human condition. They talked about how labels can shrink your life and how one real conversation can create more healing than a stack of treatment plans. Maybe this is the reminder to start 3 minutes of creating, 10 things you're grateful for in the morning, or one brave reach out to a person who can actually listen without judging or fixing you. You don't have to blow up your life to change it. Sometimes the shift is as quiet as changing your self-talk from "I'm broken" to "I'm human." Adelante siempre, por tu mente. Forward always for your mind. This is the FY I Am Damaged podcast.
In a bright green jungle where the tall trees sway, lived a little elephant who felt big fins. Every day Logan loved to splash and play by the river's side, but sometimes wobbly legs made him wanna run and hide. Tummy doing flips like a stormy shaking drum. A tiny voice inside him whispered, "What if I can't have fun?" Then Brandon, the wise monkey, smiled from the tree, said, "Little friend, take a breath, come and sit with me. Feel your feet on the ground, feel your hand on your heart. We're breathing together, that's how courage starts. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Breathe it in slow, let it out with a wish. When my mind feels wiggly like a monkey in the trees, I calm my heart down with my breath and my knees. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Step by step forward through the scared and the what if. Even when my tummy feels funny and tired, I can still be brave, I can still shine bright. Next day in the jungle they played a game of tag. Logan felt the nervous pull, his body started to drag, but he remembered Brandon and the tools he had inside. Took a deep gentle breath instead of running off to hide. Breathe in the sunshine, breathe out all the fear. Stomped his big elephant feet and felt his courage appear. With the wiggle of his trunk and a laugh so free, whispered to himself, "There's a lion heart in me." His friends saw him smiling as he joined in the game. They asked, "Logan, what's your secret? You don't look the same." He said, "When my thoughts get loud, I don't have to stay small. I breathe and move my body and I stand up tall. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Breathe it in slow, let it out with a wish. When my mind be wiggly like a monkey in the trees, I calm my heart down with my breath and my knees. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Step by step forward through the scared and the what if. Even when my tummy feels funny and tight, I can still be brave, I can still shine bright. Little heart listening, this song is for you. It's okay to feel scared, that feeling's true. But just like Logan in the jungle so wide, you've got quiet, steady strength living inside. So breathe in slowly, feel your feet on the floor. Let your shoulders soften, you don't need to. Whisper to yourself when the worries rush through. I am strong, I am safe, and I know what to do. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Breathe it in slow, lay it out with a wish. When my mind feels wiggly like a monkey in the trees, I calm my heart down with my breath and my knees. I am strong, I am safe, I can do this. Step by step forward through the skin and know what is. Logan showed the jungle and I show the world. There's a strong-minded hero in every boy and girl. In the bright green jungle when the stars shine above, brave little hearts fall asleep feeling safe and loved.